Welcome to the Edify Studios podcast, discussing the shift of architectural concepts into actual solutions, disrupting the current status quo, and having a blast the whole time. Here are your hosts, Brad Glauser and Brad Walker.
Hey guys, welcome to another special GlassBuild edition of the Edify Studios podcast. Today we are going to have an incredible treat. We were able to harness Chris Bole, president of Pikes Peak Glass. I'm excited about this one because this one, it focuses on the subcontractor, the glazer, the odd man out sometimes at big shows like this. He is going to give you insight and information onto how to conquer the show, how to best use it, how to look at that investment, and how to get that ROI. So I say dig in, listen to some of the tips and tricks, get to know Chris, and let's have an amazing time.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Edify Studios podcast. We wanted to welcome you guys in to another special episode with the National Glass Association for GlassBuild. NGA has given us the opportunity to be that. What is it now? Is it the official the conduit?
No, ambassador.
That's right. We're the ambassadors right here to make sure that we are reaching out to the industry and supporting you guys in preparation for such an amazing event, GlassBuild, that's coming up here in September. So we'd like to actually just introduce a special guest today that we've got, Mr. Chris Bole with Pikes Peak Glass. PPG, as they say.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, PPG wouldn't let me use that, so.
No. I know.
We'll talk to him.
I'm sure everything's for sale, but that's a little more than my budget would allow.
I get it.
That would be a couple of pretty pennies on that one.
Yes, it would.
How are you today, Chris?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Well, thanks, man. We want to welcome you to the show, for sure,
Thank
man.
you.
We appreciate you joining us.
Excited to be part of it.
No, that's awesome. I'm wildly excited about this one because I love that we have somebody who is from that contract glazing side of the table. There's a lot of things associated with GlassBuild that are very manufacturer driven, very that side of the industry. And I love that we had the opportunity to connect with you and talk to you a little bit more about GlassBuild from the glazing side of the perspective.
I totally agree, man. I mean, this is an event that's very technology focused, product focused, a lot of machinery and stuff, but the assets of those components that I just mentioned is that contract glazer.
Yeah.
You know, and the understanding of the true practitioner and translator of that technology into a project, man. And that's why I'm excited to actually talk to you today, man.
Yeah, let's jump back a little bit and let's think about Chris Bole. How the heck did you end up in the glass world, man?
Well, so about 19 years ago, I actually owned a chain of car washes here in Colorado Springs, and decided that was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so I went to a business broker in 2000, and Pikes Peak Glass was up for sale. And the thought process behind the acquisition was glass and glass installation could not be outsourced to China. Somebody here still had to install it and work on it. And, every building has it. And it's a 5,000-year-old product that they haven't figured out a way to replace it yet. So that was kind of my thought process in the whole thing. And
that's a great one, man. I think that's the first time I've ever heard that one. That's awesome.
Well, and hey, it's a liquid product, correct, in a solid state. So it's going to have some issues. So that's good too, right? Service work.
Yeah,
exactly.
Everything from service work to contract work. Pikes Peak Glass is... How long has Pikes Peak been a part of the Colorado Springs community?
So Pikes Peak was started in 1980, so we're celebrating our 39th year, and then about 8 years ago, a little over 8 years, coming up on 9 years ago, I was able to acquire City Glass here in Colorado Springs, which was founded in 1950, and
Wow.
City does a lot of service work, mirror and shower door work, and so, honestly, between the two shops, we do everything from, we'll be cutting DS today for picture frames, and yet we're working on a, multi-million-dollar curtain wall contract. So we kind of run the entire gamut of the glass world.
It's awesome. It's not only awesome, it's wildly important. I think it's very, very sharp and keen to be sort of aware that there is more than just the big curtain wall, and then there's more than just service. But you got to be, you got to be willing to take the lumps that come along with each side of it. And you got to be willing to find the right staff, and kudos to you for doing that.
Well, it's definitely exciting, and we've got about 100 people between the two shops, and so yeah, we're in the same boat as everybody else, trying to find. Last year we had 2 40-year employees retire, and so we're like everyone else, trying to find key people and retain good people and expand and grow. And
that's an interesting thing to talk about, the employees and then the diversification that Pikes Peak has decided to do for its business model, everything from residential, mirrors, shower doors, big contract glazing, but then to equally say that you've had actually those tenured employees that just retired at 40 years. That's pretty impressive, I think, especially where we're going as industry, and how many times we're just looking for that estimator, looking for that project manager as a company, and then to actually just kind of like plug in and say, hey. So on one side, I want to say congratulations for having that type of a thing, but it's such an interesting then generational gap that you're going to have to then get, I guess, bridge to then bring that across to that next generation, man. That's pretty cool.
It's a monumental task, isn't it? I mean, today's younger people think a little differently about their careers and career placement. I'm happy to see, it seems like we're finally, as a country, starting to realize that there's amazing opportunities in the trades. I know I've spoken with several of our local school districts about the opportunities we have, and I think we're finally realizing that somebody needs to build these buildings that Google's going to occupy, and who's going to do that? And we're a skilled trade, and so you just can't throw anybody out there and have a curtain wall project go well. You have to have that training going on and ongoing investment in young people coming into our trade. I'm excited. I think we've turned the corner on that.
No, I think that you're absolutely right, and I think that corner has started to populate again with people interested and excited about this industry. There's still, I feel, and I don't know if you feel it the same in your market, but I still feel like there is a massive piece of the middle that is missing from our industry. There's this early 30s to 50s that is just not present at this time. I feel like we were really between a lot of people who aged out and didn't have proper succession plans, and a new crop of wildly talented but terribly green and new people.
Correct. Well, and I'm 49, so I graduated high school, about 30 years ago, and they got rid of tech, and they got rid of all that sort of stuff. Everybody was supposed to go to college, and we definitely have that zone where people weren't interested, and then you take the recession, and we had a lot of people just leave the
industry in general.
Yeah. So,
well, and from a product diversification side for Pikes Peak Glass, you're looking at commercial glass mirrors and windows, residential glass, shower doors. Tell us about how important that is from a business standpoint to make sure that you're diversified into not only the contract side but also the service side. And then, let's be honest, how do you balance that?
Well, and it is. It's a task because different people bring different skill sets, and so. Again, it's a leadership component to manage each one of those. And, we were fortunate in a few years ago, knowing these retirements were coming up, get people into place to make sure that it would hopefully be as seamless as possible. No transition's easy, but to make sure that, the general manager that retired from City Glass after 40 years, that we had a person in place to manage the mirror and shower door department and the residential service department. And there was a lot of groundwork just getting there. But with every change comes also opportunities to think outside the box and to do things differently. And so that's been one really neat component of any sort of transition, is some of the new ideas and thoughts and morphing into a 21st century company as opposed to doing things the way we've always done.
That's really interesting to talk about. So if we kind of get a picture of Pikes Peak, it's everything from those mirror tables where you're actually seaming the edges, you're cutting a lot of the replacement stuff. and then all of a sudden everything from the glass trucks and actually staging and doing contract work. I mean, you spread a wide part of this industry that hopefully we can bring value to each section. But I mean, speaking on the residential side of things and even the service sales side, I mean, how has GlassBuild bolstered that education, that technology for the service sales side of things for you and for your company?
Yeah, so I think, we recently changed vendors, and I won't talk about who that is, but in the shower door world, and it was through a connection that I made at GlassBuild. So for both of us, both the vendor and myself, that connection was made, and we do sell more shower doors than any other company in Southern Colorado. So, that's one thing I find beneficial about GlassBuild is you actually get to see and meet some vendors and, do a little prospecting from a client side. And so, those sort of things, and when you're going there and you get to see and touch and feel new tools, which of course every year there's some new product out there, for us that, there's only so much you can do looking at products online. Getting your hands on them and talking with somebody in a booth becomes important.
Yeah. And I also think that GlassBuild, at least in my opinion and my time spent there, they really do occupy a lot more of the technical wizards than some of the other trade shows. A lot of the other trade shows are the typical glad handers that you'd see at every trade show, and these guys are more on hand with a lot more tech savvy and a more boots on the ground mentality.
Yeah, well, and I know one other thing that popped into my head when I was thinking about our discussion today is, I don't know if are both you guys familiar with that? Came out I think 2 years ago now, the OSHA silica and respiration issues.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, when we were there on site, again, dialoguing with a vendor, we had to, because we do seam glass here, we do cut glass here. That was, again, another great way. And I had my superintendent with us, and, so we were able to dialogue with the vendors and choose the right system for us. And we have numerous of those systems throughout our building. And then, of course, tools in the field, from our hammer drills and the capture of that, our saws in the field, things like that. So again, it was great to be hands-on and interacting with several different suppliers at GlassBuild in order to choose the right system for us. And we bought numerous of those systems. So.
Wow. That's wildly important, and it's good to have a good variety in front of you. It's easy to find a solution, and it may not even be the right solution. So a lot of times having somewhere where you can look at it in a couple different formats from a couple different vendors is in itself super, super helpful.
Yeah. Well, and for me, as I still believe in the old mantra. I mean, yes, I'll realize that. Dollars are important, but there's something about building relationships. People still like to do business with people they like, and getting to engage with some of your vendors that, put a face with a name is important. And I still think that's important.
No, it's wildly important.
I picked up on something that you said there. When you're visiting the booth and you're actually going through GlassBuild and you're seeing that, you're able to have your superintendent there to kind of triangulate the conversation from a safety issue that OSHA obviously had published, and then understanding from a leadership presidential side, you're obviously attending the show to make sure the technology's there. But then that asset for Pikes Peak Glass, your superintendent there next to you to kind of help you translate it into that department. I mean, was that something that was intentional to say, hey, I want to actually bring my superintendent to GlassBuild in order to get this type of exposure to help you grow your company's safety regimen, your QA/QC, your bottom line? I mean, what was that motivation for you to take your superintendent?
Well, yeah, so he could get hands-on, knowing that this silica thing was blowing up. He also handles our safety company-wide, and so he could see various safety things all in one spot. Rather than having the salesman come by and all you get presented is exactly what they have. having multiple booths to view and see what's going on, and the latest and greatest was very important. So we've had, through the years, I've brought estimators, I've brought project managers, I brought my superintendent, one of our field foremen. Again, investing in them is important, and we probably talk about that too. But when you invest in your people, that pays dividends as far as retention, keeping them focused, and then letting him, again, here's the ideas, Mark. I want you to gather what the best proposal is for us. Going back on that the OSHA silica, what's the best tool for us, and how do we implement that in our company? I just don't know how we would have done that well without bringing him along to visit vendors. So
even just to have the filter to hear it in that way, right? To understand how to translate it immediately into the shop, rather than maybe you or one of your other leaders within the company kind of bring back those notes with a business card and then saying, hey, there's this OSHA thing that this guy was telling me about. Why don't you call him and figure it out, right? And then all of a sudden, maybe it's 2-3 weeks, 3 months.
Hoping there's some accuracy to the information you brought back to him.
Right.
Well, and I'm a businessman, not a glazer. I've never been a glazer.
Right.
I'll have friends call
go.
me, so are you going to show up? And I'm like, boy, if I show up, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
You better hope I don't show up.
That's exactly right.
Yep. Nope,
So
I
for
get it.
me to transfer information, having never been a glazer, I would do just a poor job of it. I mean, that's why I wanted him hands-on viewing things. I think it's important, and safety stuff. I mean, that's his world. He lives in that. I don't. So for him to be able to engage with vendors on safety items, I just think is money well spent.
Yeah, no. So I think it's important that we give the listeners a little bit more of a contextual look at Pikes Peak Glass and City Glass as a whole. Where do you sit in terms of, and you can ballpark us just so they can understand, where do you sit revenue wise? Like what's a typical year looking like for Pikes Peak currently?
We kind of fluctuate between 16 and 20 million a year.
That's a great size. I mean, that's a great size company. That's a company that's doing a lot of good dominating of that middle sector, that middle earth that a lot of people tend to forget about.
Yeah. So we're segmented nicely between small shops and the big boys. And our market's a medium-sized market. We're not a major metro market, but we're also not a small market. So it's kind of a nice spot to be in.
No, I think so, and I think the reason that's important is that is not the big guys and it's not the small guys, but it is more of the middle to large size guys, and I think that makes up more glazers nationally, globally of our area here that we're talking about of United States and a little bit of Canada. I think that makes up a big significant portion of it. So I think that you're speaking in terms of a lot of the people that would be interested in possibly looking at why a glazer would go to GlassBuild, or why it would send a team, or is there ROI? Is this is an investment? Do I get it? And I think that's important to let them know that you are that size glazer and that it is important for you.
Yeah, well, and I've been on the board for the NGA, and so I've got to meet a lot of great owners across the country, and there are a lot of us kind of in this middle market that again invest and want to invest in our businesses, and I think as all of us are just clamoring for people, investing in our people and the education. It's such a smart investment as far as retention and as far as making them a better, and you hear that mantra, well, if I train them and they leave, but what if you don't train them and they leave? I think you have such a better chance of retaining and keeping great people if you're investing in them on a regular basis. And I truly believe GlassBuild is a great way to invest in your people.
Yeah. What if you don't train them and they stay?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the part that. Yeah. Then you just shot yourself in the foot yourself.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So we understand that completely, and you're absolutely right the way that you phrase that, because there is our market, Seattle, is no different than a lot of the other markets where we talked about this. It is in the middle of this massive gap. There is a shortage of good talent. It is in no way choking with a bunch of talented people who have everywhere to go. It is grab your people and hold on to them as hard and as tight as you can, because everybody else needs them right now.
Exactly. They can leave tomorrow and find another position. It's what are you doing to make sure they stay invested and feel valued in your company. So,
yeah, that's a great point, actually, Chris, because as you look into GlassBuild and attending and actually allowing those resources of your company to then go get educated and go see what the industry is about. How do you go through? What's your selection process like to make sure that you're, I guess, understanding what GlassBuild is providing, and then how do you balance that across your company to say, okay, I'd like so and so to be there, or I'd like this department to choose a couple people. What's your process as a president of a glass company to introduce that to your employees, and then how you select that? It can be a discussion. I mean, I just want to kind of hear your process.
Sure. So especially when it comes to the education part of it, both the Express Learning and the Glazers Executive Forum, we take a look at what's going to be on there. So we sit down and kind of go through what's going on each day and what the education is. And then we kind of, who feels value in this, who feels like this would be important to them. So
is that with your department heads, or how does that happen at Pikes Peak?
Generally it's me with the discussion of who I feel like the value would be this year to go. Obviously we kind of switch around, who's going to go to what, and who's going to go this year and who's not. Maybe this isn't a good year for them. And so you take a look at, like the Glazing Executives Forum, if you take a look at that, the battle for the wall. Well, I probably that's
I love it.
Maybe I should bring that up. That's about how New York City was talking about the reduction in glass in buildings. Well, that's probably not appropriate for a mirror and shower door guy.
Less applicable. Lot less applicable.
Yes, yeah. So yes, let's hope that's the case. Hopefully, we don't end up with all shower curtains made out of soy or something like that. So,
right.
The annual economic forecast, that may be applicable to some of my guys. Probably not my superintendent. He would be bored to death in a meeting like that. But attending an Express Learning on safety, right up his alley. So we kind of come up with a plan, who's going to do what each day. And then we organize a time that we all walk the floor together, all of us, so that, we can all kind of see what's going on. And then, if my superintendent sees something that he's interested in, great, go back and visit with them the second day. If my project manager sees some software that he'd love to take a look at, great. Go back the next day and take a look at it. So we divvy up who's going to do what and what, each one feels like is important, but it's kind of a group decision, but we have a plan, I guess is what I'm saying.
The important discussion I think we have on the side of the process and choosing those resources inside your company is really establishing that ROI for GlassBuild, for Pikes Peak Glass, and for the Glazers. And so I hope you guys that are listening can understand that there is an editing process. There's that pre-planning process that you're going to be looking at, and the resources that you're able to kind of share while you're there to bring back that information. Is there something specifically you're looking forward to for the contract glazing side of things? And I'm wondering, and we talked a lot about some of that mirror shower door technology and some of the safety stuff, but in the contract glazing side of your business, what's most important? Is it there to bring some of your journeyman glazers? Is it there to bring some of your project managers, or maybe some of those superintendents, assistant project managers? Where do you kind of fit, or how do you edit those resources to bring to GlassBuild, or do you?
Yeah. So last year, and we choose certain years to invest in one side of the business or the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah. So Vegas was our contract glazing side, and so we were in the middle of a software purchase. So that was important. We had some fairly challenging installation going on. We have a zoo here in town that is literally on the side of a mountain, and we had several projects up there, so we were focused on equipment to assist us in that. And So last year we really focused on our contract glazers and for those specific reasons. So it was show floor sort of items, and then obviously some of the educational opportunities there, and then driven around the safety component of it. So when we do the residential side of things, and it's more what's going on, again, we made a major shift in our shower door supplier, and for reasons, and again, just engaging them. So that's how we generally kind of tag team it, since we are a full service shop, is we focus on one area of the business and then bring the people in that area of the business and have a plan for them to focus on the vendors that they need to see and where we're going with that department.
Was the software purchase kind of a part of that GlassBuild education?
It was, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So you were able to kind of go there, understand how that software was translating into the machinery you're purchasing and surrounding that, I'm assuming?
Yes, yeah. And that was, again, to press the flesh with the actual people. It was time well spent. And so last year we even took our chief operating officer, because that was his decision. And so he was there also to engage with that. So he wasn't really looking at any sort of safety equipment or lifting equipment. He was more focused on the software side of things, and spent 2 days really engaging with that. So
awesome. Wildly important for those contract glazers out there that are thinking about GlassBuild. I know that they sit on the fence. What about you? Are you looking forward to anything in particular this year at this GlassBuild?
Well, one of my favorite things, and I don't know if you're familiar with, it used to be called Tech, and then it shifted to Vistage. But we followed with ITR Economics when I was in that group, and I was in that group for about 10 years. And I always look forward to the annual economic forecast. Their ITR is so spot on. I mean, I knew the last recession was coming, and seriously coming, long before it happened, because of their forecasts that I was receiving. And so
wow,
that's always one of my favorite do not miss. I think for any owner, obviously at the end of the day, what's going to happen with our economy affects each and every person that's listening to this. So and to have that kind of resource and to listen to somebody that's so spot on, that makes the whole show worth it for me. To be honest with you, I could go for just that. I love the Glazing Executives Forum, because we get to interact with other owners, and I just enjoy that immensely. We're all in the same boat. We're all dealing with the same problems. We're all dealing with architects and general contractors and change orders and liquidated damages and bonding, and just to sit there and even if it's commiserating, nothing more, but getting to meet other owners, I truly enjoy that, and networking with them. So the networking lunch is another very valuable thing that I enjoy.
I think those are two very important elements to the show. I think those are also two things that are known by some and not by all. I don't think enough people understand that those two things do exist at the show, and should be looked at, specifically if you're in that executive side of the organization, whether it's an owner or a COO or a VP, or if you have any sort of skin in that game for that, you should go to that and understand what that economy is doing, because it is wildly, I don't know, they're not just taking stabs in the dark here.
No.
This is real calculated data that has been proven over and over and over again to really be what is going to be. And then the network lunch is also another thing that is so valuable from a different perspective. If you're in that executive side of the organization, you can gain a lot and you can glean a lot, and sometimes you can just vent with people who get it.
Well, one thing I found very valuable is you can parlay that into relationships, and I have kind of built through the years, and I specifically went to my first GBA. What I did was I read the Glass magazine, and I was looking for people that were mentioned over and over again. And I went to GlassBuild, and I specifically reached out to them before I went so I could connect with them when I was there, to start building a network of people that aren't in my market, that I can have honest and frank conversations with. Because again, I came from completely outside of this industry. I'm not a glazer that bought or started a glazing company. I was a businessman. And so years ago, that was with purpose. And I still have a lot of those contacts. And when I run into something that I'm like, man, I don't know what to do about this. Who else has had this? And I shoot out an email to those guys, and I get a response. And so I think that networking across the nation with somebody that's not in your market, so you don't have any problems with, being honest. And I find most people in the industry, we all get up and put our pants on and go to work every day. And so we're willing to help out somebody. And so, I have friends in Omaha, I have friends in LA, I have friends in DC, in Austin, that I can shoot an email out and say, hey guys, I'm struggling with this. And I found that, and then I get to see them once a year guaranteed at GlassBuild. So,
well, and then the other side of that is that not every glazer is built the same way and to do the same thing. There are glazers that are very fabrication heavy. There are glazers that are very specialty heavy. There are glazers that are very mirror and shower door. They do the fabrication themselves. Some people are very assemble glaze heavy. So even having a network to where if your shop gets consumed or overwhelmed with something, you have somebody to access in another market that does something slightly outside the fringe that you don't do or that you don't have capabilities for is another piece to just to know the people that are there.
Yeah. It's just, again, that building relationships and assisting each other, real important. And I think, GBA and the networking is invaluable.
You bring up a good point, Chris, as far as the accessibility of the network in the glass and glazing business. And I think it's important, even in this segment here, that I would even like to invite you to share your contact information and your email address, or how can people get a hold of you or those executives that are listening now to maybe just reach out to you and say, hey, can we meet up with Chris on the show? Is that something you can actually share with us?
Definitely.
That email address?
Definitely. So it's pretty easy. It's just Chris at Pikes Peak, like the mountain, glass.com.
Excellent. And is that the best way to get a hold of you? Is just
sure. And
email?
I don't mind sharing my cell phone number too, if you think that's appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Sure. It's area code 719-491-4859.
And you guys, as you listen to this, those executives and some of those superintendent, project manager levels that are just coming into that second stage of your business, the economy is doing fairly well, and you're really, really busy thinking about those projects that you got to hold on to or you got to maintain. Look, GlassBuild sits about 3 days inside the middle of a week, in the middle of September, and you have access to these other executives and other project managers inside your industry in the country. This is the event that you actually get to plan for in order for you to go and network with these individuals that have similar issues, have similar problems. You may not necessarily be dealing with the same project, but for Chris just to mention that, saying, hey, I got a guy in DC, I got a guy in Omaha, I got a guy in LA that I'll reach out to, and I'll be saying, hey, got this issue with fabrication, or I heard this issue come up with safety, and for him to reach out even prior to the show to arrange some of those meetings, even if it's a 15-minute coffee session.
So savvy.
Hey, let's grab drinks after the networking forum because I really want to talk to you about how to work this project. This is how accessible our industry is, and that accessibility key, I think, is a huge ROI point to really make for those glazing executives, because I think about it in a couple formats. Like, you've got the NFL head coaches, right? Yeah. How many teams are there? That's an executive, that's an elite group, and I think these head coaches of these companies have the availability to create that strong network. So please reach out to Chris. Please pre-plan for some of those things, and have your project managers even reach out to those other companies and find out who's going to go and how it could work out, because it really is just an email away. These people actually do want to make sure that those networks are continuing to grow. I think that's a huge point that you made there. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that.
Well, it's working on your business, rather than in it.
Yes.
We all need to do that sometimes. And when it's gangbusters and the economy's going like it is, it's even harder, it seems like, to take that time away. But boy, what a great investment.
No, absolutely. Well, it's been 18 years that you've been cracking away at this glass business. Do you miss the car wash?
The only thing I miss about the car washes is I got to be around cars and I was outside all day long. So,
right.
But
there's an allure to that.
The last Christmas Eve that I owned the business, I was we had two of our automatics actually go down, and we were going to be busy because it snowed and got nice. And when I was sitting on the gantry in a car wash at midnight on Christmas Eve, I said, "Man, I'm not going to be 40 doing this." So that I don't miss.
Sure. No, Chris, we sincerely appreciate this, taking the time, sitting with us, going through all this. We are very excited for this to go out, and then we're excited to see you at GlassBuild as well.
Sounds great. Thank you for the opportunity to promote it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all there.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, so much for joining us here on the Edify Studios podcast. You guys, please reach out to Chris. Please reach out to us. We'll put the links here in the descriptions below. Comment back and forth. We'll make sure that we just want to bring that accessibility, bring those ROIs to your company for GlassBuild. Chris, thanks so much for spending a short time today. I'm glad everything worked out technology-wise.
Me too. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Edify Studios podcast with hosts Brad Glauser and Brad Walker. To learn more about Edify Studios, visit www.edify-studios.com. That's www.edify-studios.com.